Is Shohei Ohtani better than greatest Yankee ever? Klapisch, raise your hand if you're surprised the World Series is still going on and that the Blue Jays are just 9 innings away from breaking the Dodgers' hearts. Don't be embarrassed, I didn't see it coming either. My network of Yankees fans, the ones who promise to forget about baseball until pitchers and catchers report for spring training, have circled back to sort of root for Toronto. It's a Don Mattingly thing. As one hardcore explained, he gave so much joy to millions. He deserves a ring. The loyalty to the former Yankees captain supersedes the offense taken at Vlad Guerrero Jr.'s mocking "Day Yankees lose" after the AL Division Series shocker. It's not forgotten, but remember, it's a Dodgers thing too. No one I know likes them. Still, it's not a requirement to have Randy Newman's "I Love LA" on your 80s playlist to acknowledge Shohei Ohtani is MLB's resident superhuman. Even the bleacher creatures would yield on that point. The sport hasn't seen a two-way player this dominant since Babe Ruth, which raises a fascinating question. Who was better? Disclaimer: no. 1. We're comparing two different eras, which should stop the discussion dead in its tracks. Of course, we're plowing straight ahead. Disclaimer: no. 2. Are we talking about who was the better skill-for-skill athlete, or the one who dwarfed their respective industry? Disclaimer: no. 3. Don't hold me to any of this, we're just in a pre-hot stove rabbit hole. Let's start by deciding who had the lengthier career with the greater accumulation of stats. In other words, who crushed it year after year. That would be Ruth, obviously. He played for 22 seasons with a career WAR of 182.6, the highest all time. Ohtani's career WAR is 62.2 through 8 seasons. But he's still only 31. What made Ruth unique was his ability to outshine 2 and even 3 generations of players. No one came close over those 22 years. Of course, many would dismiss Ruth's longevity by pointing to the inferior competition. Nevertheless, scientists of the time considered Ruth a genetic freak. The Yankees legend underwent a series of tests at Columbia University's psychological laboratory in 1921. The goal was to assess his sensory motor and cognitive skills, attention and reaction time. The result: Ruth rated as 90% efficient against the human average of 60%, and his nerves scored higher than 499 of the 500 individuals screened, according to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Had steroids been around in the 1920s, there would have been no other way to explain the Bambino's superiority. Ohtani alluded to Ruth's legendary gifts in an interview with 60 Minutes. The Japanese star said through an interpreter, "Ruth is like a mythical character to me, because it was such a long time ago, and he was God to baseball. I shouldn't be compared to him, at least not right now." That's a reasonable request. Time will be the ultimate judge, although it's worth noting Ohtani has already undergone 2 Tommy John surgeries. It's fair to conclude that Ruth's success at the plate was, in part, due to his limited time as a two-way player. Ruth was a pitcher for 6 years before switching to full-time hitting. He had a heavy dual workload in only one of those seasons, 1919. Ohtani, on the other hand, has been a two-way wrecking ball since 2018. And there's no doubt he's facing bigger, stronger, and more skilled major leaguers than Ruth ever did. Even by modern standards, Ohtani is practically unstoppable. His record-setting 50 home runs/50 stolen bases campaign in 2024 speaks for itself. Ruth could have never accomplished that. Nor could Ruth have equaled Ohtani's 10 strikeout, 3 home run tour de force in Game 4 of the NLCS against Milwaukee. Perhaps the best hypothetical question is whether Ruth could have competed at Ohtani's level if he time-traveled from, say, 1927 to 2025. Ruth hitting against Ohtani would be a matchup for the ages. I would have similarly loved to see Ruth trying to solve Trey Savage's splitter. Widen the landing spot and let's pit Ruth against Mariano Rivera's cut fastball or Sandy Koufax's massive curveball. Ruth's supporters say he would have figured it out. Fair enough. His first move would be to trade in the 40-ounce bat he used to hit 60 HRs in 1927, or the 54-ounce bat he used earlier in his career with the Red Sox. The modern 31-ounce bat would have felt like a feather to Ruth. Imagine how much more dangerous he would have been with enhanced barrel speed. But step 2 would be problematic. Ruth would have had to train like a 21st century ballplayer. Watching video would be a must. He would have had to understand the science of swing analysis, not to mention adjusting to the massive uptick in velocity. The average fastball of Ruth's era was 85 miles per hour. Even his superior reflexes would have been challenged by, say, Aroldis Chapman 100 miles per hour four-seamer. I'm not saying Ruth would have failed. My real question is whether he would have made the lifestyle changes required of today's ballplayers. Ruth's beer and hot dog diet would have had to be replaced by protein, creatine, and colostrum. He would have had to spend time in a flotation tank that decreases cortisol and lactic acid and boosts immune function. And mostly, if Ruth wanted to match Ohtani, he would have had to give up the notorious nightlife of the Roaring Twenties. I can't envision any of that. My hunch is that Ruth would have lit up a stogie and said, "No thanks." That's why, in my book, Ohtani stands alone. Now, and maybe forever.